Think about it. The more you work on yourself, the less you rely on anyone else to make you feel complete. When you focus on self-growth, you build something no one can take away from you. True independence. See, most people spend their lives seeking validation, approval, and a sense of security from the outside world. They're constantly looking for someone to tell them they're good enough, someone to reassure them they're on the right path. But that's a dangerous game to play, because if your sense of worth is built on what others think of you, what happens when they change their mind? What happens when they walk away? Suddenly, you're lost. You're empty. You're left with nothing but a void you don't know how to fill. But there's a better way. Instead of looking outward for answers, turn inward. Focus on becoming the kind of person who doesn't need external validation to feel whole. That's the foundation of real strength. It starts with self-improvement, with discipline, with a relentless commitment to being better than you were yesterday. It means taking responsibility, true, deep responsibility for your own growth. And that's not easy, in fact. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because when you commit to self-growth, you have to face yourself. You have to look in the mirror and acknowledge the parts of you that are weak, the parts that need work. You can't run from your flaws anymore. You have to confront them, break them down, and rebuild yourself stronger. This is where most people give up, because it's uncomfortable, because it's easier to distract yourself with relationships, with social media, with meaningless entertainment. It's easier to chase temporary pleasure than to do the hard work of self-mastery. But if you want to be truly independent, if you want to be unshakable in who you are, then you have to put in the work. You have to become someone you respect, someone you trust, someone who stands on their own 2 feet, not because they have to, but because they've built themselves into a person who doesn't need to lean on anyone else. And here's the thing, when you do that, everything changes. You start carrying yourself differently. You stop tolerating mediocrity in yourself and in the people around you. You stop chasing relationships that drain you because you're no longer looking for someone to complete you. You stop seeking approval because you don't need it. You already know your worth. And paradoxically, that's when the right people start gravitating towards you, because strength attracts, confidence attracts. When you become someone who is fully focused on self-growth, you naturally draw in people who are on the same path, and the ones who were only in your life because they benefited from your weakness, they fall away. That's the power of self-reliance. It's not about isolating yourself or pushing people away. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need anyone else to feel whole. The more you build yourself up, the less you need them. And when you reach that point, when you realize that everything you were looking for was within you all along, that's when you become truly unstoppable. Most people spend their lives chasing something outside themselves, believing that if they could just have that one thing, more money, the right relationship, the approval of others, then they'd finally feel whole. But that's a lie. Because fulfillment isn't something you find out there, it's something you build within yourself. And the people who understand this, the ones who learn to generate their own sense of purpose and satisfaction, they are the ones who become unshakable. They stop being controlled by circumstances, by other people's opinions, by fleeting emotions. Instead, they operate from a place of inner strength, a place of deep, undeniable self-worth. But the problem is, we live in a world that constantly tells us the opposite. Everywhere you look, you're bombarded with messages that say you're not enough as you are, that you need something else, someone else to be complete. Social media thrives on this. It keeps you chasing, keeps you comparing, keeps you believing that happiness is just out of reach. And if you buy into that mindset, you'll spend your life running towards something that doesn't exist. You'll think, if I could just get more attention, more admiration, more success, then I'll finally feel good about myself. But it never works that way, because external validation is a bottomless pit. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. And this is where people trap themselves. They attach their happiness to things that are outside of their control. They think, if people like me, I'll feel valuable. If I'm in a relationship, I'll feel loved. If I achieve this goal, I'll finally be enough. But what happens when those things disappear? What happens when people stop clapping? When the relationship ends? When the success doesn't bring the satisfaction you thought it would. If your fulfillment is dependent on something external, then you are at the mercy of forces you cannot control. And that's a dangerous way to live. So what's the alternative? The alternative is to cultivate inner fulfillment, to stop chasing and start building. And that begins with knowing yourself. It begins with sitting in silence and asking, what actually matters to me? What do I value? Who am I when no one is watching? Because the truth is, most people don't even know. They've spent so much time looking outward that they've lost touch with themselves. But when you start paying attention, when you start doing the work to develop your mind, to build real confidence, to create a life that aligns with your values, something incredible happens. You stop looking for someone or something to complete you, because you've already built that completeness within yourself. And here's the paradox. The less you need, the more you have. When you stop seeking validation, you become more respected. When you stop chasing people, the right ones start coming to you. When you no longer depend on external things for your happiness, you become truly free. And freedom is powerful. It allows you to move through life with clarity, with purpose, with a deep sense of peace that no one can take away from you. So ask yourself, am I living for myself? Or am I living for the approval of others? Because the more you build inner fulfillment, the less you rely on anything outside of you. And when you reach that place, when you no longer need, but simply choose, that's when you've won. Everywhere you look, there's something trying to pull your attention away. Your phone lights up with notifications, social media keeps you scrolling for hours, people around you drag you into meaningless drama, and before you know it, the day is gone, the week is gone, the year is gone, and you're stuck wondering why you aren't any closer to where you want to be. This is how most people live, constantly distracted, constantly pulled in every direction except the one that actually matters. And then they wonder why they feel lost, why they feel like their life isn't their own. But here's the truth. Distraction is a choice. Every time you give into it, you are making a decision to waste time instead of build something meaningful, a decision to chase instant gratification instead of long-term success, a decision to let the world control you instead of taking control of yourself. And make no mistake, there is a cost. Every hour spent mindlessly consuming is an hour not spent improving. Every moment wasted on nonsense is a moment stolen from your future self. Because on the other side of distraction, there is something far more powerful, discipline. And discipline is what separates those who succeed from those who spend their lives making excuses. The disciplined person wakes up with a plan, with a purpose. They don't let distractions dictate their day. They don't waste time on things that don't serve them. They know that every decision, every action is either moving them forward or holding them back. And so they choose every single day to move forward. But let's be honest, discipline isn't easy. It's hard to sit down and do the work when no one is watching. It's hard to stay consistent when progress feels slow. It's hard to say no to distractions when they're designed to be addictive. But that's exactly why so few people have it. And that's exactly why you must develop it. Because discipline is freedom. It is the ability to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. It is what allows you to take full control of your life, to create a future that isn't built on luck or wishful thinking, but on effort, on commitment, on an unshakable work ethic. And the more disciplined you become, the less you need distractions, the less you seek mindless entertainment because you're engaged in something real, the less you crave external validation because you've built confidence through action, the less you fall into bad habits because you've developed the ability to choose to act with intention rather than impulse. And that's the shift. That's when you stop being a slave to your environment and start becoming the master of it. So ask yourself, are you living with discipline or are you letting distractions steal your life from you? Because every moment wasted is a moment you never get back. And in the end, it all comes down to this. Either you control your time or something else will. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much you plan, no matter how careful you are, you will face challenges. You will encounter setbacks, disappointments, and moments where everything feels like it's working against you. And in those moments, the difference between those who rise and those who crumble isn't intelligence, luck, or even talent. It's mental strength. It's the ability to stand firm when the storm hits, to maintain control over yourself when everything around you is out of control. And that, more than anything else, determines your success in life. But most people never develop that strength. They go through life reacting to everything, letting their emotions dictate their decisions. They get offended easily. They let criticism break them. They crumble under pressure because they never learned how to manage their own mind. And so they stay stuck, trapped in cycles of frustration, anger, and insecurity, blaming everything and everyone but themselves for why they feel so lost. You have to understand something. Your emotions are powerful, but they should never be your master. If you let them control you, you will live in a constant state of chaos. One moment you'll feel unstoppable. The next you'll be doubting everything. One negative comment will ruin your day. One small failure will make you want to quit. That's what happens when you haven't trained your mind, when you haven't built the discipline to regulate your emotions instead of being ruled by them. And this is where people get it wrong. They think emotional control means suppressing how they feel, pretending like nothing affects them. But that's not strength. That's avoidance. Real strength is about awareness. It's about understanding what you're feeling without letting it consume you. It's about being able to take a step back, assess the situation logically, and act based on reason, not impulse. Because when you can do that, nothing can shake you. Imagine someone insults you. The weak person reacts immediately, gets defensive, lashes out, lets it ruin their mood. But the strong person, they pause, they assess, they ask, is this worth my energy? Is this even about me? And most of the time they realize it's not. It's about the other person's issues, their own insecurities. And so they move on unaffected because they understand something fundamental. Giving power to negativity is a choice, and they choose not to. Now apply that to every area of your life. You face rejection. Do you let it define you, or do you learn from it and move forward? You encounter failure. Do you see it as proof that you're not good enough, or do you take it as feedback and improve? This is the mindset shift that changes everything. When you stop seeing emotions as absolute truths and start seeing them as signals, things you can observe, process, and control, you take back your power. But this isn't something that happens overnight. Mental strength is built just like physical strength. It takes practice, it takes discipline, it takes constantly challenging yourself, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and proving to yourself that you can handle it. And the more you do that, the more resilient you become. The things that used to shake you don't even faze you anymore. The situations that used to trigger you lose their grip. You become calm, composed, in control. And that is where true freedom lies. Because when you master your mind, you master your life. Nothing owns you anymore. Not fear, not failure, not the opinions of others. And when you reach that point, you realize something powerful. The world doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. Most people go through life letting their priorities be dictated by everything except their own goals. They get caught up in distractions, in relationships that drain them, in obligations they never questioned but somehow accepted. They spend years trying to please others, trying to fit into expectations that were never even theirs to begin with, and then they wake up one day wondering why they feel unfulfilled, why they're nowhere close to the life they once imagined for themselves. This happens because they never made their goals the priority. They treated them as an afterthought, something to be pursued if there was time, if they had the energy, if life wasn't too chaotic. But that's not how it works. If you want to accomplish anything meaningful, your goals must come first. Not after you've scrolled through social media, not after you've dealt with everyone else's problems, not when it's convenient. First. And here's where it gets difficult. Because the moment you decide to put your goals first, you're going to face resistance. People will accuse you of being selfish. They'll say you've changed, that you don't care about them like you used to. And the truth is, they're right. You have changed. You don't care about the same things anymore because you've realized that your time is limited. Your energy is valuable. And if you don't protect it, the world will consume it without a second thought. This is why so few people ever achieve what they're truly capable of. Because prioritizing your goals requires sacrifice. It means saying no to things that don't serve you, even when it's uncomfortable. It means distancing yourself from people who pull you away from your path, even if they've been in your life for years. It means choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure, discipline over ease, focus over distraction. And that's not easy, but it's necessary. Because the alternative is far worse. The alternative is looking back on your life and realizing you never really went after what you wanted. That you spent more time worrying about what others thought of you than building something meaningful. That you let your dreams slip away because you were too afraid to put them first. But you don't have to let that happen. You can choose right now to take yourself seriously. To stop treating your goals like a hobby and start treating them like a mission. Because the moment you do, everything changes. Your actions become intentional. Your time becomes sacred. Your life starts moving in the direction you choose instead of the direction dictated by distractions and expectations. And when that happens, when your goals finally take their rightful place at the center of your life, you stop needing validation. You stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop feeling lost because now you have something real, something worth dedicating yourself to. And when you commit to that fully with everything you have, you'll realize something incredible. The life you always wanted was within your reach all along. You just had to stop making excuses and start making it happen. People spend their lives chasing approval, chasing status, chasing relationships, chasing some idea of success that was handed to them by someone else. And they think that once they get enough money, enough recognition, enough love, then they'll finally feel secure. But it never works because the more you need, the more power you give away. The more desperate you are to fill some internal void with external things, the more you become a slave to them. And that's why so many people, even the ones who seem to have everything, still feel empty. But the opposite is also true. The less you need, the freer you become. The less you depend on validation, the more confident you are. The less you crave distractions, the more focused you become. The less you attach your happiness to things outside your control, the more unshakable you are. And that's real power, not being controlled by your circumstances, but being in control of yourself. This isn't about rejecting success or relationships or ambition. It's about shifting your mindset. It's about recognizing that nothing outside of you can truly complete you. And when you understand that, everything changes. You stop chasing people who don't respect you. You stop trying to impress people who don't matter. You stop relying on anything external to make you feel whole. Because you already are. And ironically, that's when life starts to open up. That's when you start attracting the right people, the right opportunities, the right experiences, not because you're desperate for them, but because you don't need them. When you walk through life with that kind of strength, with that kind of independence, the world responds to you differently. You become someone who isn't easily moved, who isn't easily broken. You become someone who chooses rather than someone who begs. And that's the goal. Not to have more, but to need less. Because when you reach that point, when you stop relying on everything outside of you to make you feel whole, you realize something powerful. You were never lacking anything to begin with. At the end of the day, everything comes down to one simple truth. You are responsible for yourself. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you want. And the more you focus on yourself, the less you need from anyone else. You don't need approval because you've built confidence from within. You don't need distractions because you have discipline. You don't need constant reassurance because you've developed mental strength and emotional control. Your goals become your priority, not because they're easy, but because they're yours. And the less you depend on the external world to give you meaning, the more power you have over your own life. This is where true freedom begins. When you stop chasing and start building, when you stop needing and start choosing, when you become the kind of person who is so focused on growth, so disciplined in your actions, so independent in your thinking that nothing, no failure, no setback, no opinion can shake you. That is the goal. That is the path. And the moment you commit to it fully, you'll realize something incredible. Everything you were looking for was within you all along.